Parents of Reddit with older kids, what's something weird or strange your kid did as a young child that made you think they were going to grow up to be a wacko but they turned out fine? My 4-year-old used to bang his head on the floor when he got mad. Hard, now he is 20 and in college getting an engineering degree. Those two things do add up. My daughter had terrifying night terrors when she was about 2. She'd get out of bed in the middle of the night and stand at the top of the stairs screaming like someone was murdering her. She'd stare at the bottom of the stairs like something was there. If I got too close or too far away from her, she'd scream louder. She doesn't remember this and is totally fine now. I give every parent who has dealt with night terrors the highest regard. One of my good friend's daughters both suffered from them in the stories she told me. I think I lost years of my life on her behalf. When I was a toddler I was easily convinced of things my older cousins told me. One of them convinced me that you say hello by barking. So for months my mother had to endure me barking at people whenever they'd speak to me. I'd often sit on the underpart of shopping carts like a dog laying down and just bark at strangers. She was mortified for months and dreaded bringing me in public. This is amazing. The coffee pot was missing. My wife found it in our daughter's room filled with urine. The daughter said, "It's for an experiment," and then looked at my wife. She had just asked the stupidest question anyone had ever come up with. Anyway, said daughter did remain a bit of an oddball, but has since grown up into a pretty normal person. For the most part anyway. Her future boyfriends were doomed to pee poor coffee. My older brother was a total dictator who used fear and blackmail to get what he wanted. Okay, so I should probably mention that I was one of 11 adopted kids. This particular brother was the third oldest. We'll call him Tony because that's his name. When we were pretty young, he had this way of getting everyone on his side when someone turned against him. Once I crossed Tony and he had my brothers trap me under a trash can that was riddled with holes. Then had someone sit on top of the trash can while everyone else danced around the trash can and hit it with sticks while spitting and throwing dirt into the holes. I think I was 6. Later on, I had enough and ended up dragging around a big heavy axe screaming at my brothers to don't frick with me. This scared them all enough for everyone, including Tony, to leave me alone. Aside from that, everyone listened to and obeyed Tony. Everyone took the blame for things Tony did if he got caught doing something. I was thoroughly convinced Tony was going to be some sort of psychopath working his way up in a gang somewhere, but instead he got a well-paying job and moved in with his girlfriend after high school. They're one of those couples that treats their dogs like their children. He delivers eggs to older people in his town, donates food to the local food pantry when he can. Seriously, if you met Tony today, you'd think he was the sweetest man you'd ever met, and he is now, but he definitely wasn't always. I think he just grew up a lot. My youngest brother is 6 years younger than me. My parents coddled him. At age 6, he would throw a temper tantrum like a 3-year-old if my mom didn't make him cinnamon toast, so she'd make it for him. He had a strange habit of chewing on the carpet on the stairs, any toothbrush he could find, the brush on the snow scraper, even the toilet brush. Never did figure out why. He ended up in business school, worked at a bank for a while and then took over the business from my parents and is absolutely minted now. Got married and has 3 perfect kids. I wouldn't have thought that growing up, but I guess kids are just strange. To be fair, cinnamon toast is the bomb. My eldest has an imaginary friend named Xavier. He claimed that he was a ghost that lived in his playroom and he would sit having long conversations with him. It was really freaking creepy and we started questioning whether or not he had mental issues. He stopped mentioning him shortly after he started preschool and started hanging out with kids his own age. He says he doesn't even remember having an imaginary friend now and is your typical moody teenager. I had imaginary friends as a kid. I was so lonely. There were no other kids on our street. I think mine also disappeared around the time I started school and made real friends. My oldest also had imaginary friends. She gave them weird names. One was Solange. My daughter used to lower her voice to a growl and call it her devil voice. She would torment other children with this, much to her delight. I thought for sure she would be a sociopath or something. Nope. She's just fine and well adjusted. My grandson did that when he was learning to talk. He would say mum, dad, pop all completely normally. But when he said nan it was the demon voice. This pudgy baby growling in this low creepy voice. I love my grandkids. They are creepy. I've got a story about myself. I used to want to be a forensic pathologist and autopsy people. For practice, I would draw dead people on a piece of paper, like they were lying on the table, give them names and causes of death, and then I'd do a Y incision. My parents found them, naturally, and thought I wanted to kill people. I'm fairly certain my mother thought I had brain development issues or something. She even told me once, if anyone calls you stupid or names, tell them you're special. Then one day I told my best friend about it and he was like, dude, she thinks you're retarded. But I mean, I get it. I wasn't the smartest kid. I did a lot of strange things and acted pretty weird, I guess. I don't think I have any development issues. I wouldn't know how to find that out, but looking back on how I was, I guess it was a reasonable deduction to make on my mother's part. Regardless, I think I've turned out pretty nice. My little cousin insisted on wearing costumes every day from the time he was, like, 4, until he was, like, 7. He went to a Catholic school so he had to wear a uniform there, but other than that, the kid was in a costume. Batman, Superman, police officer, firefighter, cowboy, etc. Would constantly test his parents and throw fits if he didn't get his way, but they wouldn't give in to him. He was just persistent. They'd try to get him to wear normal clothes, but before long he'd be costumed. When he stopped wearing the costumes, he doubled down his focus on strength training for hockey, asked for a Bowflex for his 8th birthday and had a 6-pack of abs before his next birthday. We swam all the time, so he was always in a bathing suit, and a 6-pack is super obvious on a kid. These days he's being recruited for the NHL. And he'll get to wear a costume once again. Goal. As a kid, my sis used to secretly pray every night. A lot. She read from a list of horrible things, tragedies, praying they wouldn't happen. She was sure they would if she left anything out. Pretty obsessive. She's a married lawyer raising great kids now. Very normal, though still pretty anxious. I used to have some obsessive rituals like that. I really didn't like fire, and for a while I felt like if I didn't wash these 2 random animal figurines in cold water before bed every night, there might be a fire in the house. And I knew at the time that it was ridiculous and stupid, but that doesn't help. Not a parent but the kid. I had an imaginary friend but never told my parents because my friend was older and they always told me to stay away from adults they didn't know. So they'd often walk in on me sitting on a rock and talking alone, saying stuff like you have to think about the bills before buying a boat. I also had a lot of elaborate stories with my dolls. One time my mom found one of my Barbie's head in the trash can. She asked me why, so I told her Barbie went shopping and when she came home she saw Ken naked with Brenda. So she killed Brenda and took off her head, then she took off Ken's legs so he couldn't go see other girls. She took me to a therapist and she realized that whenever I went to my father's, they were divorced. I saw him beat his new wife and heard him threatening her to kill her if she saw other men. Now I write horror stories and cuddle with my dogs. My parents don't read it, but I used to mutilate my Barbies, remove limbs, draw wound stitches, run over them with the Barbie Corvette, hack all their hair off, you name it. Worst was I would make it so when my grandma opened my bedroom door, that tin-nosed Barbie would fall in front of her face. Grams thought I'd be a serial killer. Mom just thought I was creative. Not a serial killer. I was just a major tomboy that didn't play with Barbies like expected. I read that as babies, not Barbies. It was an awkward few seconds. I'm not a parent, but my brother used to enjoy ripping butterfly wings out just for fun and I thought he'd be a potential serial killer. Now he's the softest thing that cries over dog movies and can't even hurt a fly. He can't hurt a fly, just a butterfly. My daughter tried to shove a toy down her little brother's throat, nearly choking him. She knew what she was doing. She was also very controlling during playtime. It had to be her game, her way. She liked playing with younger kids because she could control them easier. We started working with her on her anxiety, and she's a relatively normal 13-year-old now. This reminds me of Rugrats. My little brother used to bang his head on the floor or walls when he got upset about anything. He just started college and seems fine to me now, lol. Oh, that was one of my cousins. Scared the crap out of my parents when they were babysitting. My mum got called into school a lot when I was young because of my disturbing stories and artwork. My teachers were worried something bad was happening at home, when in reality I just have a very overactive, and yes, a bit weird, imagination. It all worked out though, because now I make a living writing these stories and making them into films. My dad got called into the school when I was around 7 because I had drawn swastikas all over my binder. They thought he was secretly a Nazi. I just liked the shape lol. Not a parent. This is a self-reflexive comment. I wet the bed until I was like 10 lol and I was worried that I was, therefore, going to be a serial killer. Update. I have impeccable bladder control and I have killed precisely 0 people. I have killed precisely 0 people sounds exactly like what someone who has killed more than 0 people would say. My sister is 10 years younger than me, 8, and is an absolute freaking psychopath. When I babysit her she will commonly threaten, and sometimes attempt, to stab me with various sharp objects. She has a nasty habit of playing mind games with anybody that will leave you wondering how the frick that just happened. For example, she has cut up things like books and thrown shreds all around my brother's room with my name on it. Sketchy thing being that she can hardly write yet she can forge my name. She swears like a freaking trucker, and consistently tells me to butt frick myself with a cactus and the like. And my parents completely disregard any accusations I make against her. She has a temper like you have never seen before. Anger that I can only imagine is concentrated heck itself being released through the form of my sister. Considering the fact that it looks like I'm living with my parents through uni. Wish me luck. My mom absolutely thought I was going to grow up and be a psycho because I listened to bang your head on a wall kill a cat kind of music. Cut off dolls' heads and tied them to the pants to wear in school with my trip pants. Not even the teachers freaked out about it, but she would threaten to take my door off the hinges because I had girls over yada yada. Turns out I was just a typical teenager trying to deal with trauma and abuse while rebelling. I hope the pain from the trauma and abuse you endured has ended. I laughed when people died because of traumatic crap. My dad literally thought that I was gonna be a serial killer. Nah, I want to become a crime scene investigator. Rule 1. Don't get caught. I walked on my tiptoes until about age 8, and I would write and draw in the air all the time with my finger. I'm totally normal, married with 2 kids and a professional writer. I'm not sure why I did it, but sometimes I still catch myself writing in the air randomly. Shrug. I used to get really mad at my baby dolls and shake them and throw them at my wall. Then I would feel guilty and say sorry, I do not have children. Throughout primary school, all my teachers presumed I had learning difficulties. I was in assisted reading, the lowest sets for all classes, etc. So, I participated in a dyslexia test. It turned out I'm not dyslexic. ADHD next, not that. So, someone suggested it was my hearing. I'm unsure as to why my brother participated. However, I'm suppose it was to rule out any inherent problems relating to him as well. The hearing examiner proceeded to ask us questions like matching pictures of animals she suggested in various undertones. For example, she'd say cow whilst muffling her mouth. My brother, being the competitive spirit he is, would do it instantly. Me? I'd pick random animals and repeat them back to her, every time. In conclusion, she told my mum I have hearing problems. I don't. I just didn't like people telling me what to do. TLDR. People thought I was retarded, but I was just not cooperative. People thought I was retarded, but I was just not cooperative. I wonder if that's actually worse than being retarded, because you're doing it on purpose. Retarded people can't help it. My son is only 7 months, but my nephew will be 17 soon. When he was about 4, he was basically non-verbal besides muttering, "Gonna kill them, shoot them in the head, drink blood, gonna cut them up." He had a stuffed animal monkey he would pretend to stab and hang, and he only drank red Kool-Aid or juice because it's like blood. I had just started dating his uncle and was really weirded out by this kid. His sisters were completely normal. Then we babysat late one night while his parents went out and he requested his bedtime show. I got Spider-Man, his favorite. Nope. Superman? Nope. Batman? Hulk? Cars? Nope. Freaking Texas Chainsaw Massacre is what he went to sleep watching every night, despite being raised by raging, worthless alcoholics, who yes, we reported multiple times over the years and having some pretty warped views as a kid. He's now a wonderful, intelligent young man who rescues cats instead of skinning them alive like I expected. My parents thought I was a golden child, but I was weird as heck. When I was younger I liked to eat pillows, eat sand, lick my dog, and steal all of the eggs in the house and hide them in various places. I mean, besides some health issues I like to think I'm normal. The health issues are from licking your dog and eating eggs that were sitting out too long, JK. Don't be offended. This isn't exactly what you asked, but when I was little I remember I would drown ants with cups full of water and I would sometimes surround them with water and slowly fill it in and it would be trapped. I would also step on them and horrible stuff. I would also get objects, like sponges and rubber toys, and pretend they were alive and I would torture them by stabbing them and cutting off pieces of them with scissors and I would narrate their screams and voices inside my head and I would make them call me the giant and they would see me as a god or else I would torture them and kill their friends which they would find on their adventures. When he was 6, my son had a weird way of, I guess, dancing, where he'd make like a Joker smile and flail his torso side to side with his arms stuck to him but his hands twitching. He's 12 now. He still does it. Other than that, perfectly normal. As an adult, my mother has now let me know that she was very concerned about me as a kid. She knew that I was highly intelligent but I just was so spacey. I legitimately lived in another world sometimes. Not like a haha she has such a big imagination way, either. I would stare off into space so intently that nothing could bring me back. I was completely incapable of socializing with other children. I was just weird. I'm in my mid-20s now and married so I guess I got over it. I never realized just how bad it was until my mom visited a few months ago and we went into detail. I hope my kids are normal. Normal for children is an extremely broad range. My sister and her best mate when they were 5-6 years old were the neighborhood snail stompers. After rain they would gather the poor snails into one area and stomp away. She turned out okay. Not a parent, but the child. I used to rip wings off of flies and watch them struggle, dismember Barbies. I tried to take apart any electronic device I could get my hands on, etc. I remember my mom buying me alarm clocks for Christmas just so I could take them apart. She still pokes fun at me for saying once the babies are easy to kill in reference to killing small bugs I'm fine, I think. Not a parent but I remember when my cousin was a kid we all thought he was going to grow up to be a weirdo. Mostly he was just an odd kid that got very focused on one strange thing. Light bulbs, seeing how much gum he could fit in his mouth, other people's iPods, for a few months until he moved on to a new obsession. He's a sophomore in college now and seems totally normal. ADHD, common trait to be obsessed with something for a short period of time and totally lose interest. My little brother used to run around wanting to show everyone his penis and loved playing with his butthole. He has now not only come out of the closet, but he kicked the door down. Not a parent but a child. I was an insomniac from a very earlier age, so after I was put to bed, I would do things like line up every Beanie Baby stuffed animal I owned in a warlike formations, then go into my parents' room and cause shenanigans. They were eating dinner so I had free range. One night I dressed myself in my parents' cloths and wandered to the bathroom, where I pulled everything I could reach off shelves and out of cabinets onto the floor making a huge mess. I decided to take off all my cloths and cut my bangs off because I thought they were annoying, and then put on some lipstick. Much better. Next I thought I would put on some lotion, so I smeared way too much of it all over my body. At this point I felt I had had enough adventure for one night, and began attempting to put my PJs back on. This proved to be a difficult task as I was very slimy with lotion, and I had put both legs through the same pant leg. Between the gallon of lotion and the pants being leggings, 4-year-old me realized that I was in over my head and I needed parental assistance. I was a very independent child, always insisting I do IT, so I scooted on my butt out of the bathroom and over to the stairs. Now, all I had to do was scoot down one step at a time. I immediately fricked up and rolled down the stairs like a carpet. Parents come running and get me all sorted out. Ice for boo-boos. One leg per pant leg. Why are you so slimy? SHHHHHH, you're alright. All I could say was, Mom, don't talk to me about the mess. Seriously, don't tell me about the mess. I was more concerned about the trouble I was gonna get in than the hole in my face where a tooth poked through. Also, according to my aunt, when I was 5-6 I used to dress up in absurd outfits with hats and scarves and water the garden while talking to the plants about how my husband had died recently and I was a widow. I turned out mostly sane. I'm about to get my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Sculpture, which is awesome. Not a parent but a friend of mine when I was in elementary school used to collect my and another friend's hair and keep it in a jar. Never found out what he used it for and not sure I want to. My daughter would literally act like a cat in the 5th grade, even hissing and scratching kids. Still amazed that she grew into a normal adult. Oh god, you just reminded me. I used to play puppy and pretend I was a dog. I made my aunt play along and call me Brandy. I don't know why I picked a stripper name. I was about 5, though, and I only remember doing it once, so it must not have been that much fun. My mum told me a few weeks ago that when I was a toddler I took her wedding rings, hid them under my beanbag and sat on them. Then when she asked me where they were I lied and said I didn't have them, so she picked me up and took them back. Then I looked at her and said, they are going to mine one day, you may as well give them to me now. I'm the kid people worried about. When I was young, youngest of 3 girls, I picked on my sister, the middle one, horribly. She was a girly girl, loved her dolls, playing house with them, didn't like getting dirty, loved playing dress up, needed everything nice, clean and tidy. Me on the other hand was a tomboy, didn't like anything she liked, which I made her life a living heck, and I in turn got a lot of butt whoppings from our mother. They both thought I mentally impaired. Something was just wrong with me. I would take her dolls and cut their hair, cut off fingers and or toes, remove legs and or arms, put the doll items in an envelope, slide it under her door, pretending to mail these items to her and asking for a ransom. Ransom could be anything: money, her doing my chores, or whatever I could think of. Once I got my ransom, she got the rest of her doll back. Looking back, it does seem pretty creepy. This was in the 70s, so I think people just thought I was a weird, mean child. I'm sure if I grew up in this day or age and did these things, people would look at me as a serial killer in the making and get counseling. I grew up not being a serial killer. I have a very kind heart and can't stand see anyone hurt. So really, I was just a mean butt kid that got into a lot of trouble cause I just didn't care. Oh, about the dolls. Most of the time my sister would scream and cry for our mom. Mom would tear my butt up with a belt and the doll would be returned and I never would get my ransom. Sad but true story. LOL. I hope you're doing better now. I don't think child me could have forgiven someone for ruining my toys like that. Not a parent, but a former kid here. When I was younger, from around 7-10 years old, I was neurotic about counting. I would count dang near everything I could. The number of syllables in a word or a sentence, the number of lines on the road, just bizarre crap. You would have thought OCD or something, but I'm 22 now and I no longer count crap, so I guess it straightened up. Holy crap, I did the same thing. Mostly I would count points, like how many points were on a sign, or a door, or literally anything. I would do this every second that I was awake and I wasn't able to stop until I was in my 20s. Later found out that my spatial awareness is off the charts. Go figure. Not kid, but when my brother was 2, he would repeatedly jump into the deep end of pools with all his clothes on. We never figured out why he did it, but he got over it and is an avid swimmer. My mom confessed to me a few years ago that I was one of those children. I used to basically torture bugs and then eventually moved to small animals. I tore all the legs off a daddy long legs to see what it would do. I ripped the backs off fireflies to see what was inside the glowing pouch. When my fish died, I got a knife and dissected him in the bathroom. One time I even killed and dissected a frog that I found near a pond. In hindsight, that's pretty messed up. But I remember how curious I was about everything. I was so obsessed with figuring out how little creature worked that I didn't think killing them was wrong. In 5th grade, I got a pet frog and loved him so much that I snapped out of it. Then I learned how to use Google rather than trying to find out for myself. I dissected my pet parakeet when he died. I didn't torture animals or anything. I was just genuinely interested in the dissection. Most of my childhood I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. I'm a lawyer now. Probably made the wrong choice. When I was a kid I thought it should legal to beat your pets. I still thought it was wrong and horrible and all, but I had a very warped view of what property meant. I could tell my parents were very concerned about it though, and they once had me tested for being a sociopath lol. LOL. A lot of things. He didn't learn to tie his shoes till way late. He seemed determined to not learn to tell time and he wouldn't color inside the lines for the longest time. The thing that was the most unsettling was that he had the artistic style of a serial killer. I remember when he was about 5 and we had a particularly contentious session of trying to learn to tell time. I called my mother, crying and said, "Mom, I don't think Prabha Candidate Jr. is as bright as you think." Happy ending. He is a mechanical engineer and actually turned out to be quite bright. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.